It began with a single headline that no one was ready for. Jamie Dornan to Dakota Johnson. Stay away from my wife. The words spread through Hollywood like wildfire. Within hours, entertainment sites, tabloids, and social media were ablaze with speculation. What had happened between Jamie Dornan, Dakota Johnson, and Amelia Warner? The trio that had always seemed to coexist in fragile harmony? At first, no one wanted to believe it. Jamie and Dakota's friendship was legendary, born on the set of 50 Shades of Grey, forged through years of intense filming, red carpets, and emotional interviews. They'd shared laughter, inside jokes, even tears. And Amelia, Jamie's wife, had always been the calm presence who supported him through it all. But somewhere between admiration and obsession, the line had started to blur, at least in the public eye. The spark that ignited everything came from a recent interview Dakota had done for a French magazine. She was promoting a new film, lighthearted and relaxed, when the interviewer casually asked about her relationship with Jamie. Dakota smiled, the way she always did when his name came up. Jamie's family has always been very kind to me, she said. Amelia is such a wonderful person, we still talk sometimes. She's like a mirror of calmness in his world. The comment seemed innocent, until it wasn't. Within hours, gossip blogs twisted it into something else. Dakota Johnson admits closeness with Jamie's wife. Fan pages began posting old photos of the trio together, speculating about tension behind Amelia's serene smile. Hashtags like #TeamAmelia and #Dakota crossed the line started trending. The story exploded. Paparazzi began hounding Jamie outside his home, shouting questions about Dakota. Amelia, visibly uncomfortable, stopped appearing in public altogether. And then came the phone call. According to a source close to the family, Jamie had tried to ignore the noise at first. But when a journalist cornered Amelia in a cafe, asking if she still trusted Dakota, something inside him snapped. That night, he locked himself in his study, scrolling through endless posts, watching the headlines multiply. It wasn't just speculation anymore, it was intrusion. He picked up the phone and dialed a familiar number. Dakota answered almost immediately. Jamie, she said, her voice soft, unsure. Yeah, he replied, tone low but controlled. We need to talk. There was a long pause on the line before Dakota said, I know what this is about. I don't think you do, he said, his voice tight. I've spent years protecting my family from this kind of thing. Every word, every smile we share gets twisted. But now, they're dragging Amelia into it. My wife, Dakota. She didn't sign up for this circus. She tried to speak, but he continued. You need to stay away from her. From us. Just until this blows over. Jamie, Dakota said quietly, I never meant to hurt anyone. I was only being kind. I know, he replied. But kindness doesn't matter when people want a scandal. You have to stop feeding it. There was silence, thick, painful, final. When the call ended, Dakota sat in her trailer, stunned. For the first time in years, Jamie's voice had sounded like that, distant, cold, protective to the point of anger. She understood where it came from, but that didn't make it hurt any less. By morning, word of the confrontation had leaked. Someone close to the situation told Entertainment Weekly that Jamie had personally called Dakota and warned her to back off. Whether the story was exaggerated didn't matter, the damage was done. Photos of Dakota leaving her Los Angeles home with red eyes filled the internet. Comment sections became battlegrounds. Some accused Jamie of hypocrisy, saying he owed Dakota loyalty after all they'd been through. Others defended him fiercely, calling him a husband who finally drew the line. Through it all, Amelia remained silent. But insiders said she had seen the toll the headlines were taking. She hadn't asked Jamie to intervene, he had acted on his own. She was upset, one close friend said. Not at Dakota, but at how easily their private life had become public property again. Jamie saw that, and he couldn't take it anymore. In London, Jamie refused interviews and cancelled appearances. When paparazzi caught him leaving a gym, he stopped for a moment, his face unreadable, and said, "I love my family. That's all that matters." Then he walked away. But the internet had already written its story. Commentators analyzed his every word, wondering if this was the end of Hollywood's most complicated friendship. Others whispered that Amelia had finally made Jamie choose. As the headlines screamed and opinions multiplied, one thing became clear. Something had shifted permanently between Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson. What had once been effortless trust was now shadowed by the harsh reality of fame, loyalty, and love tested in the public eye. And somewhere behind closed doors, Amelia Warner, the quiet heart of it all, sat watching the storm unfold, wondering if this time, it had gone too far. "Stay away from Amelia." The words echoed long after the call ended, not as a threat, but as a boundary drawn by a man who had finally reached his limit. In the days that followed, Hollywood couldn't talk about anything else. Jamie Dornan and Dakota Johnson's friendship destroyed, read one headline. Amelia Warner caught in the middle, said another. Social media burned with debate. Fans dissecting every quote, every photo, every old interview as if searching for proof of betrayal. But behind the chaos, far from the noise of tabloids, a quieter truth was unfolding. Jamie hadn't slept much since the confrontation. He told himself he'd done the right thing, protecting Amelia from the relentless storm that fame always brought. But the image of Dakota's stunned silence on the other end of the call lingered in his mind. He wasn't proud of his anger, only exhausted by the constant misunderstanding that came with living in the public eye. Amelia noticed the weight he was carrying. One evening, she found him sitting in the backyard, staring at the dimming London sky, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. She sat next to him without a word. For a while, they just listened to the sound of the wind moving through the trees. Finally, she said softly, "You know she didn't mean harm." Jamie sighed. "I know, but people don't see that. They twist everything. They always have." Amelia reached for his hand. "You can't protect me from the world, Jamie. You've tried for years, but it's not your job to fight every rumor." He looked at her, eyes tired. "It's not about fighting. It's about drawing a line. I let too many people think they could define us. I can't let them touch what we've built." Her gaze softened. "You can draw a line without burning bridges." Jamie stayed quiet. He wasn't sure he could. Across the ocean, in Los Angeles, Dakota was facing her own kind of storm. Cameras followed her everywhere, outside studios, restaurants, even her home. Friends advised her to issue a public statement, to defend herself, to clear the air. But she refused. Instead, she disappeared for a few days, retreating to a small beach house in Malibu. There, away from the noise, she wrote in her journal, trying to make sense of it all. "We shared so many years of friendship, laughter, and trust. I never thought kindness could be turned into suspicion." For the first time, she understood the burden Jamie had always carried, the impossibility of living a private life when every smile becomes a headline. Still, a part of her felt hurt. Jamie's words had cut deeper than she wanted to admit. "Stay away from Amelia." It wasn't just a warning, it was an ending. Days later, a close friend convinced her to meet a journalist from a reputable magazine, not for gossip, but to tell her side of the story. The piece, when published, was calm, reflective, and far from scandalous. "There was never any conflict between Amelia and me," Dakota said. "She's a beautiful person. I admire her deeply. People love drama, but real life isn't always that dramatic. Sometimes, friendship just needs space." Her tone was measured, her words graceful. But what stood out most was what she didn't say. She didn't deny the pain, or the misunderstanding. She simply let it breathe. When Jamie read the article, he felt something shift. It wasn't relief exactly, but a quiet sense of regret. That night, he walked into his study, picked up his phone, and typed a message. It was short. "I'm sorry things went too far. I only wanted to protect what matters most. I hope you understand." He didn't expect a reply, and for a while, none came. But a few days later, Dakota responded. "I do. And I hope one day we can laugh about this, like we used to." He smiled, the first genuine smile in weeks, and put his phone down. A few evenings later, Jamie and Amelia attended a charity gala together. They walked the red carpet hand in hand, calm, united. Paparazzi shouted Dakota's name, but Jamie didn't flinch. He just smiled at his wife, leaned close, and whispered, "Let's give them something else to talk about." Inside the event, surrounded by lights and noise, Amelia looked at him and said, "She forgave you, didn't she?" Jamie nodded, "I think so." Amelia smiled faintly. "Good, you both deserve peace." In the months that followed, the rumors died down. The story lost its heat, replaced by newer scandals and fresher gossip. But for those who had followed closely, something deeper remained, a lesson about love, loyalty, and the cost of being known by millions yet misunderstood by most. Jamie never spoke of the incident publicly again. In one interview months later, when asked about the challenges of fame, he said quietly, "Fame makes friendship fragile. It turns small truths into weapons. But if you care enough, you learn when to step back, and when to say sorry." And that was all he ever said about Dakota Johnson. In the end, there was no lasting feud, no public fallout, only a boundary drawn, a misunderstanding healed, and a quiet understanding between two people who once shared something rare. As one Hollywood columnist later wrote, "It wasn't anger that ended their story. It was love, just redirected toward where it belonged."